All right, the shilling at 89 shillings to the dollar, looking a little bit strong, but somewhere steady after the MPC's announcement. Why haven't we had major movement on this front?
I think we can't have much movements from the shillings front because you realize that first there are bond maturities coming this month. Actually, towards the mid-December, we're having some bond maturities, about 7 billion Kenya shillings, and this is expected to inject some liquidity into the banking system. So I think it's all about psychological impact it will bring in the market. And then again, you also have the rate hike coming off yesterday. I mean, you need to give it some lag time for it to peak because the shilling is still trading on the momentum from last month's rate hike, you know.
All right, let's talk about what's happening on the agro side of the economy. Mashudu spoke us through figures for Mumias down 5%, Ria, Vipinga also down 5%. Now, these have been stellar performers on the back of a weakened shilling. The agro producers expected to do well. What does a strengthening shilling mean for some of these exporters?
Really, it doesn't mean, it means that any shilling priced asset that you're exporting outside this country may not yield so much for you. I mean, if you look at Q3, all the exporters, they really raked in a lot of money from the weak shilling. In fact, if you look at some of the agricultural results that I was looking at, some of the agricultural results that I reached last almost 2 weeks ago, really very strong turnover on the back of a very weak shilling, you know. Obviously, they were very bearish on the second half prospects because they actually saw the shilling cannot repeat that kind of performance, you know. So, really, I mean, we will see investors slapping a bit of discounts on such stocks because it was one-off, you know.
Okay, let's talk about the shilling and the bond markets, because obviously after the recent interest rate decision that we've seen, we're now almost starting to see parity in terms of interest rates, the CBR rate and inflation. It's going to start making Kenyan securities very attractive. Have we seen any movement on the bond side of the economy?
The bond side, actually, I think yesterday's action has further thrown the bond market off course, you know, in my view. You realize that now a 2-year is 23%. In fact, today, if you look at the demand levels, it's probably coming at 23% and above, you know. And at that rate, there'll be no supply, you know. No one would be willing to sell at a loss, you know. So you'll have a situation where the bond market is pretty tepid, very liquid, very little supply, no one willing to take a chance in the secondary market. But then again, you'll realize that we'll have a lot of investors snapping up the prevailing primary yields because, you know, you have just reissued 2-year bond now very attractive at 23%, you know, a coupon of 23%, and then they reopened it again this week. So a lot of money will be heading to the primary market, you know, going forward.
Okay, let's move over to what's happening on the equity side. Express Kenya a gainer today. Why is that?
I think, in my view, that at the moment, investors have boiled down their fears to macro fundamentals rather than the micro fundamentals. So as we go forward, you might see a lot of some of those what I call peripheral stocks really driving the market, you know. So a situation where investors will be looking at them as inflation hedge, you know. Some of these stocks might be moving volumes, but the betting spreads will be in the negative territory, you know.
Have we seen any movement on the TPS Serena counter, because there is talk of a share swap?
Yes, there's a lot of demand coming on board. In fact, yesterday, some very good trades happening on the stock because, you know, when that news came out, obviously it excited the stock. You know, everyone grappling for the stock in the market. Although we might see a bit of trading, it might be short term. You know, it might not be sustainable. But obviously, next week is a stock to watch. You know.
All right. What's going on with the banks? Co-op Bank, we're told that the directors are selling off some of their shares.
The banks, at the moment, they're pretty depressed, you know. I mean, the market now discounting their balance sheet business going forward, you know. A high interest rate, CBR at 18%, you know, and very soon you'll have the prime rates, 91-day, 182-day T-bills now trying to catch up with the CBR. At that rate, it doesn't look pretty good for their balance sheet business, especially the loan book. So going forward, we might see a lot of profit taking, sustained profit taking of the banks, although in high volumes. So right now, everyone is bearish on it's bearish on the banks. I mean, this is also coming from the global debt wars, everyone now discounting banks,
Staying with the banks, last week there was also the surprise move taken by the CEO of Equity Bank when he decided to dispose of some of his shares. He says it's a technicality regarding his contract and the tenure at which he can hold a certain percentage of shares. But some people were reading other more sinister motives. Is everything okay at Equity?
I don't think it's quite material to the current going on the market. Obviously, you realize that the top management, they have stock options, some kind of stock options, and they have the right to exercise them at any time. So in my view, there's a divergence between what time they exercise the options and the market conditions. So if you ask me, I think in my view, it's immaterial to the current going on in the market,
Okay, and any stocks we should look out for in the week ahead?
I think we should look ahead to Kenyan Market. They should be issuing their full year guidance in the first half of this month. They probably will be telling us where they see their EPS and what kind of dividends they'll be issuing out next year. Obviously, this is the last month of the financial year, so it's a stock to watch. I'm also asking investors to look at stock like Centum and KPLC, really trading below their NAVs. And I think for me, that's a very, very strong buy signal thereabout,